Alright, map awareness. Map awareness is a hell of a lot easier in 1v1 than it is in Conquest. I mean, after a while, you should even be able to know, for the most part, where they are on the map, even when you don't have wards. But before I get into it too much, an easy and simple way to think about map awareness in Duel is simple. Just imagine where you would be at the time, based on where they were last seen, things like that. But I will be sure to give you guys a decent example with Photoshop here. Alright, let's take a deeper look. Like I said, map awareness is very, very important in Duel, but it's not nearly as complicated as it is in Conquest, because there's only one other person, right? So basically, an easy way to look at this is to put yourself in the enemy's shoes. Or your own shoes, more or less, because you should always be thinking, where would I be in a specific situation? What would I be doing right now? So let's say this is a duel, and the red guy's me, and the green guy's some random, like Trelly or something. Now, I win the early game exchange, right? I outpressure him, but I don't have enough sustain to keep pressuring, go for his other buffs. Trelly is forced to back, go all the way back to his Titan, and by the time I'm done clearing up this wave, and this wave is moving up, I can do the red buff, and then safely back. Or I can do, you know, the red buff, and then tag these creeps, yada yada yada. But then I'm forced to back to base. Now, by the time I back to base, Trelly's going to walk up, and he's going to do one of two things. He's going to go straight to the blue buff and clear that, or he's going to go straight to the wave. Either way, I know where he is, because if there's a wave here, it's going to give me vision on him. So by the time I'm like, let's say I move all the way up to here, I see him right there, and then I see him rotate to his blue buff. And with that knowledge, for example, is a way to keep track of buffs. You don't need to know the exact amount of time it takes. You don't have to time yourself on how long it takes to walk up this way, or walk up that way. You just have to base it on your own. It'll start to come naturally after a while, like your own movement speed and just like general guesses of where a person could be. So I know for a fact, since I saw him here, he could be doing one of two things. He went straight to his blue, or he's trying to invade mine, which wouldn't be smart because it's just after the first fight for red. So I do my blue, but I know that he did his blue a little bit before me because I got red, right? And I saw him rotate there a little bit before me. So I can use that information to basically know exactly when his timer is coming up based on my own. I don't have to know the exact timer of how long it takes for this buff to spawn. It could even be like with red. If you have like a full fight in mid, and you end up losing, this is like 15 minutes into the game, you don't have a tower or anything, and you're not entirely certain when red's up, base it off of that fight, and then like look at your own timers. Like let's say blue buff's spawning relatively soon. Like, you can use that information to get at least a decent idea. You don't need to know exactly when it's going to spawn, but you can use your own buffs as sort of like timers. Let's talk about warding real quick. There are a few spots that you can go. The basic ones, basic points would be... These are the simplest of ones. Now, warding isn't as useful in Duel as it is for Conquest, and that's pretty much a fact. For warding, like I said, it's not very useful because if you look at the map and you look at, you know, your waves, because you're basically, no one's trying to miss a wave. No one wants to ever miss a wave. So as long as you're paying attention to where the waves are, that will tell you where they are practically, and if they're not there, then you know one of two things. They could be on their own buff, if it's up. They could be on the red buff. They could be trying to do Bull Demon, minis. Like, you just have to factor in so many different options. So, usually, you're going to be in the wave like a good chunk of the time, unless you're dead or rotating to a buff. But you should be able to get a decent idea as to where the person is at all times, to the point where you hardly even need to use wards, unless you're like really worried about being backdoored or anything. And there's also options like this. Like, let's say you don't really want to ward, but the person is like being a little sketchy. You could do something like this. You don't like these are the two most popular ward spots, obviously, because they give you vision on probably the most important area, which is obviously if they're trying to sneak a Bull Demon. Now, you could ward both spots or directly on Bull Demon. I don't see a point. I know a lot of people ward directly on Bull Demon. I don't see a point in that when you could just put a ward, two wards here, and then you just automatically have vision on both spots rather than just at the Bull Demon and just watching them walk up to it. You could realize too late and you're like, oh, you're like right here and you see them on Bull Demon. You're like, oh shoot, you don't get there in time. You just have to watch them do it. But if you have one right here and here, you can see them walking towards it. So even if they're not doing it, you have a decent idea and more time to react. That's why I find that ward spot's just a little more useful. But you don't actually completely have to ward both spots if you don't want to. You can ward this aggressive side of their jungle, and you have vision. So if you see them like go you can just see them go a certain way. So at all times, you know they walked through this path. They could have went this way, or they could be like going down this way. So you just have a decent idea. You don't completely need it, but I do suggest if you're late game, might as well put 2 wards right here. And there's also, like, your defending wards. You could put, I like to put one right here if you're trying to defend your Titan, and then one right here. So it gives you time rather than warding like right here and like you're up here or something. You could put a ward right here in the middle, right here, or you could put it up further. I don't think it's complete. Like, you could put, and it depends if you're being aggressive. If you're being aggressive and you're pushing, you could ward if you really wanted to, like here, to see if they're trying to sneak some XP or something, and then you could ward a little more aggressively, like up here, or give yourself more vision of this area here if you are trying to pressure them, or even a little higher, just to see where they are on the map and if they're rotating to waves in time. So that's Wards 101. Wards aren't the most ridiculously useful thing in the game, at least in Duel, but you can use them if you do choose to do so, especially if someone's trying to backdoor. That's very useful. Now, one last situation. I mentioned how buff timers can be useful, but you can also use, I don't think I've mentioned this before, you can use buff timers and knowledge that you and the enemy have to your advantage. So, let's say this has been an even game, right? Me and Trelly have been battling it out, you know, epic, sexy mechanics, all that sort of stuff, and then we both back off because we know red's coming up. Now, with this knowledge, what one of us could do if we really wanted to, or, like, let's say I back first, and Trelly is clearing this wave. Like, I back off because I have to, and he's taking a little bit longer than I am to clear this wave. We both know that that red's coming up here soon, and he could expect, since he's backing a little later than me, I could immediately, instead of going and getting ready to fight for red, as it's about to spawn in, let's say, like 15 seconds, so by the time Trelly gets up there, he'll want to be there just on time because he thinks I could even be here because I backed before him, right? But I could immediately rotate to the Bull Demon, right? And by the time he even notices, since he's going to be getting up here later than me, he could actually go and check Bull Demon, or a little too late, because he rotated to that red buff. Now, the same can be used vice versa. That's the thing. Like, Duel is all a mind game. So he could think that, he could be aware of that, and he could, like, time his positioning on when he's backing, or even the way he rotates the buff by going up this way and going a little faster just to quickly check. Because at all times, if you are ever skeptical that someone is doing Bull Demon, it's almost always worth the check. You can actually see it from very, very far away sometimes. You can see it from back here if he's actually hitting something, because the animations of gods, as well as some of the Bull Demon animations, are actually visible from a distance. So it's always worth it to try and check as much as possible, because people could use buff timers to their advantage. Like, you could think, let's say both of our blues up, he could think that I'm just simply on my blue. After I cleared a wave, I go down, go to my blue, and then I just go straight to Bull Demon instead of doing my blue, and he thinks I'm at blue, and then he goes to check too late. So yeah, rotations, those are very important with Duel. Always be aware of where your enemy is. Simple as that. Put yourself in their shoes. What would you be doing in this specific situation based on what they have, where the waves are? Always make sure to be paying attention to where your wave is on the map. You don't even have to know exactly how fast the minions are moving. Just look at your minions and then just take a guess based on where your minions are. If like their waves go, or if your wave actually dies first and he clears it, that's where these minions could be, like his minions. So you can use a ton of things to your advantage in terms of map awareness, but that's pretty much map awareness 101 in Duel. That's like the most important stuff. Warding, knowledge of positioning, like enemy positioning, as well as, you know, being careful with your own for when you rotate to red buff or Bull Demon. I try and bait them out with a certain rotation. Things like that. And buff timers. I'm pretty sure I got all of it. Awesome. Well, that is map awareness 101 for Duel. Let's talk about towers. We'll start off with stacking and getting gold off of minions in a tower. Unlike Conquest, in Duel you get 0 gold when a minion is hit by the tower. This means you have to be a little more careful when choosing which minions you hit first, so you can get as much gold as possible. When building stacks when minions are under tower, remember that the front melee creeps take 3 tower shots to kill and the archers take 2. So your focus at first should usually be on the back archers first, and then kill a melee creep before the tower kills it if you can. If stacking, you can focus more on last hitting the melees and archers just to secure your stacks. You can actually interrupt a tower shot to secure more gold. Just last hit the creep the moment the tower shoots it, and it will interrupt the shot and allow you to get the last hit on another minion for gold. Also, you can do a loop around the tower to make sure the archers attack the tower first. You don't need to take unnecessary damage if you can't clear them safely. Also, keep in mind you don't need to completely finish off a minion that the tower is hitting. You can hit it once and then walk away and you still get the XP. I see a lot of people trying to last hit the minions when they're not even stacking, so don't waste time finishing off one brute creep when you could just hit it once and then walk away and you'll still get the XP nonetheless. Towers can also be used aggressively. If the enemy is poking the tower and doesn't have kill potential, no abilities up, things like that, you can walk in front of the auto so the tower or the phoenix shoots them. The opposite can be used to your advantage when you're trying to poke the enemy under a tower as well. It's difficult, but if you pay attention to when the tower fires, you can have the opportunity to poke them and then immediately leave the tower so you don't take damage. Know your limits though. Be careful how much you tower dive. And that's coming from me. I tower dive a lot because I am comfortable with how much damage the tower does to me. I just have a good understanding from years of experience of taking tower shots. Each tower shot does 20% more than the previous time that it hit you, so always keep in mind just a decent idea as to how much you're going to take in the next shot. The same knowledge can be applied when hitting a tower or phoenix as well. Just keep in mind that backdoor protections exist when you're trying to take a tower or phoenix. So if it's late game, for example, you can use this to your advantage if you have just a single archer. You could walk into the phoenix before it goes so that the phoenix aggro's on you, and you can keep it alive to get rid of the backdoor protections while you whittle it down.